Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gaz Williams Show. Yes, tonight I've got an amazing guest. I am super thrilled because Craig Fortnum will be joining later. Now, some of you may not have heard of Craig, but he is the kind of main guy behind the North Sea Radio Orchestra and also Arch Garrison, which is like a duo. It's mainly him, but he's accompanied by the amazing James Larkham. Arch Garrison. And Arch Garrison have got a brand new album that's going to come out on Friday. So this is really handy that he's coming on today because I am a huge fan. In fact, I got to be honest, North Sea Radio Orchestra is still my most listened to thing in my entire history of my iTunes listening history. So there. But yeah, that's still to be toppled. And Arch Garrison gets quite high up there too. So Craig is... in many ways, is the quintessential English singer-songwriter. I think there's a fantastic tradition which he kind of falls into, really. And that may include some of the usual suspects of the Nick Drakes and John Martins, etc. But also, there's a very kind of unique sort of humour in his music as well that kind of also kind of connects it to... alternative music, I suppose. So it's folky, it's alternative, it's but also very pastoral as well. And the North Sea Radio Orchestra, absolutely. I mean, it is actually like a small chamber orchestra, I suppose, as opposed to a rock band. Anyway, all of this will be revealed later when we talk to Craig. In the meantime, just in this little early preamble, no YouTube. Have we got no YouTube? Is all showing well on YouTube? Just looking at the comments. Yeah, Nick Drake was so amazing, wasn't he? Nick Drake, really tragic story. And I think, oh gosh, is he in the 27 Club even, Nick Drake? But he certainly was around that kind of age. Or, oh gosh. Wow, all of the legacy of Nick Drake is fantastic quality. Anyway, but let's see what's in front of us now. Yeah, YouTube is okay. Thank you so much. Just checking everything is all good. That's brilliant. All right, that's cool. Thank you, though, people watching out for this, and lovely to see you all in the chat room. So Craig will be joining us about 8:30, so in around sort of 30 minutes from now. And but in the meantime, what have I got in store for us tonight? Well, I'm sure many of you will have seen that the Polybrute has been announced by Arturia, and for synth lovers, that's really exciting, a new analog poly synth. But one of the most noticeable things is that the Polybrute appears to have a slightly smaller version of a Touché attached on the left-hand side. Now, I think this is actually really fascinating. Some people are... Well, and I'm not sure if we know whether Expressive E, another French company like Arturia, were involved in it, or if it's just inspired by the Touché. Either way, it's both very interesting too, because I think that this thing is just such a marvel. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but it's essentially a performance controller, and it's got a load of connectivity. There's two versions you can get. You can get one that's just a USB controller, or you can get this one, which has got MIDI on little breakout DIN jacks, or mini jack, of course, or CV. And I've got 4 CV outputs coming out here and coming in to the rack. Now, I think this is a lot of fun. So I think I'll do a little bit of kind of plugging, so we can kind of try and see what fun we can have. Essentially, this thing is outputting the 4 different CV pressures on either forward, backwards, left or right. And it's so sensitive that just gently moving your finger up and down, it makes a difference. If you flip off the lid, there is a little slider that this controls how much left to right movement there is. This way, so that's really loose at the moment, and there's some kind of residual momentum left in there as well. I typically like that a little bit stiffer, so I'll put that stiffer there, and then this control controls how sensitive the whole shebang is. So let's have a look what we've got going on. At the moment, I've got it doing very, very mild stuff. Right, let's have a look. Okay, so at the moment, let's just see what we're having, what's going on our patch. We have got the sound is emanating from the angle grinder. And if I move the Touché left or right, what we're doing essentially is playing with this kind of wave shaper part of the angle grinder. So in fact, if I take these down, so pushing to the right, you may be able to see this little LED glowing. I think where have I got one of these? Which one works? So just change this view a moment so you can see the. Let's just put that on there. Okay, there we go. Great. So you can see that this here. Now, on the Samara here, this is kind of a new thing for me, really, to play around with this. This is like a utility waveform processor, which is a bit of a curious one, really, in terms of what does it do? Well, I suppose it does lots of utilities should you need things. So in this particular case, I've got all 4 outputs of the Touché feeding into the Samara. So then I can, well, that gives me a bunch of things I can do. I can just tap out that signal and send it different places, which is indeed which I'm doing. And then these knobs can control essentially the strength. So the strength of how much is coming out, the Samara lets me actually control that with knobs, which is super cool. Now, I've been thinking just before I went live that what would be really nice is to make the pitch bend left and right. But I was wondering if I could using the Samara, I can kind of sum signals together, so I could sum the left and right movement and put that into the well, let's see what happens. Hope everyone is good. Oh yeah, nice to see a lot of the gang in tonight. Yeah, so the Touché is such a cool device, because it can really very subtly impart human control into the electronic world. Now, I want to go and let's have a look now. I did a bunch of patching just before going live, and I completely forgot what I've done now. Output. Oh yeah, this is good. Right, I'm going to move this into frequency input here. All right, okay. So 3. Let's turn it all the way up now. So I'm actually opening. Well, it could be a lot more. It could be a. Let me change this around. So that's. Oh, sorry, it's coming out 2, and I had it cut down here. There we go. Let's turn. Yeah. So. So as I apply pressure down here, it opens the filter. So that's really simple at the moment. I've got the Zadar here being an envelope. It's very long. That's for nearly 5 seconds. Let's make a fast one here. A bit longer. It's so I could actually assign my envelope generator. I could actually set. Let's plug the output of when I go down here. That output, which is essentially it's output 1 is here. Output 2, 3 this way, and 4 this way. So we're going to go from output 1, which into the Samara, out of the Samara, and now I'm going to put that into the Zadar, into the assign. Now, what can I do? So if I go in my page here, this bit small to see. Let's have a look. If I make this a little bit bigger, it's a little bit small to see. Can I zoom in a little bit? Zoom. Okay, you can just about see the Zadar here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this envelope. I'm going to make it loop round. So so first, oops, I'm putting in repeats. There we go. So let's just try. I'll try 4 repeats first, and then we'll go from there. I'll probably want a lot more. Actually, let's go 8. 8 repeats. Is that actually? Oh, hang on. Oh, that's because it's really slow. There we go. I see. I can hear it looping round. There we go. Let's make this slower. I'll open the filter for now, just while I set this up. Faster, so we can hear it. Here we go. Okay. So the warp, I can make it fall, or make it kind of. Okay, cool. Now, let's see what we can do with the assign then. So if I can assign the CV input now from here to do various things. Now, let's see what... Should have thought about what I'm going to do first, really. Just one moment. Let's make them much faster, make it more fun. Okay. Now what am I doing? I'm sending this heel of my hand, the heel, I guess, like if I'm thinking of this like an expression battle, toe and heel. I'll call it that for now. So the heel is I'm sending a heel command over, and I can't remember what to do. Yeah. Let me just figure something out here. I might do something a bit more obvious for the moment. Trigger, assign. Should have really read the manual, shouldn't I? That would have made a lot more sense. I wanted to see if I could speak. What I want to do is I want to change the time. I want to control the time from here. That's what I'm. That's what I'm trying to do. So as I press down, they're shorter. There must be a way. I'm sure there is a way. I'm just where I assign the CV. I'm just trying to remember how to do it. Oh, do you know what? I have not learned how to do it. I thought I was going to bluff my way through this. Anyone out there with a Zadar? I've got the manual. Yes, let's watch a man read a manual. That's the most entertaining thing you could possibly ever think of doing. Menu, CV assignments. The central red menu cycles through CV input assignments. Okay. Oh, yeah, all right. So in this window here, this is the assignment. Right, okay. So I am sending out one. So... Okay. Yuck. Now, how do I assign? Oh, okay. Oh, here we are. The little dial there. Shape. That's affecting the shape. And so I can, presumably, how can I change those? So sorry about this. This is so dull. I will get there. It will be worth it. It will be worth it. CV. When CV... Oh, here we go. I just push it. Great. Duration. That's it. That's what we want. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. Right. Thank you, everybody. I thank you so much for your patience. I'm there. I'm where I wanted to be. So let's make loads more repeats then. Let's make it... repeats... I'm going to put it on infinite repeats for now. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I suppose the Samara now, if I pull that all the way down. Yeah, so if I put the Samara here, maximum pressure takes us there. Or full speed. When I say full speed, that's full speed to where we're allowing it to go with this. So we could go faster. And it starts to self-oscillate. Ha, that's fun. Okay. Oh, of course, it's just going to keep on. Is there a way to defeat its infinite repeats? So as I'm moving it to the left, that's changing settings on the angle grinder, adding the wave shaper in. So opening the filter here. Repeat! Stop the repeats! There we go. That's really cool. What's super cool about these modules, these are chaos device modules, or XAOC devices, but pronounced as chaos devices. When you turn these knobs, they scale really nicely. Like I can flick them really fast and it goes up big numbers or really slow with acceleration, and it's done really, really nicely. That's not always the case with things. How are we doing, everybody? Hope everyone is enjoying this. This is kind of a little bit make it up as we go along. I do have a confession. Yes, it is confession time. I haven't done a lot of modular in the last few weeks for various reasons, but I'm fully embracing it at the moment, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. Yeah, VCAs. So yes, that you can never have too many VCAs, which is a bit of a modular cliche now. It's so true, and I'm really late to the party in that one. But yeah, but actually, I'm finding that these tip-top cables, ones that let me plug another one into it, are super handy. Right. I did have really nice sounds going on earlier this evening before it started playing. Just 7 or so minutes until our illustrious guest joins, Mr. Craig Fortnum. So hang on in there if you're waiting for him. This is just a little bit of noodly preamble. My goodness, so much stuff has been happening here. I can't wait to tell you about some of the things, but some of it's top secret, and I'm saying it's top secret more because I don't want to curse it. But until it's ready. But yeah, some pretty cool stuff happening. Okay, let's be a bit more extreme, shall we? I'm thinking now. I'm going to pull out the. I'm gonna get some clouds on the go. I think we need some something ambient now. So bear with me. I'm just going to do a little bit of patching. God, my chair's getting creakier by the day. I think I need a new chair. Yeah. But something coming out of the. I'm going to come out of the clouds and into the radical technologies effects. I love effects. And then we'll bring this back in. We're using the Rosie from Make Noise as our output module. Too short. I'll just use one of these tip-top cables for that one. Yep, I am getting that thing of... oops, sorry about the shaky... bouncy shakiness. Here we go. Let's just focus that in there. Lovely. Yeah. It gets messy, doesn't it, with the cables very quickly. My goodness. Where would I be? All right, that'll do. Let's pop in here. Haven't got the disting plugged in. Well, there's nothing mapped into that yet, which is odd because this thing is... incredible. This is the deepest thing. It really is. Anyway, so let's have a look now what's going on. I have got my path. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to get clouds on the go, and I'm going to get some of the Touché mapped. Have we got time? I got 5 minutes. Yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Oh, yes. The chat room is very funny. Thank you, everybody, for joining in there. It's great to see you all there. Okay, so will these reach? I think they will have to. Yeah, they do. So I'm going to have, I think, the forward press then on the Touché. I'm going to have that go into wave position. Let's try that now. Okay, now in my input for clouds is coming from the effect send. Yeah. Okay, let me just get some action. Return level, let's bring that up a bit. Okay, some delay going on there. One moment, I will... I was just checking things are working. Now let's get some clouds. Yeah, go. I mean, this is a small, tiny little rack in the grand scheme of things, you know. God, the people who can just move around their gigantic racks. I've got just such respect for those guys, though. It's like, ugh. Oh, yes. It's a funny old business, isn't it? Plugging stuff in, because if you forget what you've done and you've just like, ugh, and then you just have to repatch and rework wherever you're going. So I'm trying to come out of here. When I'm coming out of here, the send, yes. Let me get clouds doing something. Bear with me. Oh, this is... I think I might do this differently. Let's come... yeah, I'm going to swap. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. Okay. Let's go in this way. That's quite right. Oh, I'm running out of time. I'm so sorry. This is utterly dull. This is utterly dull. It just takes too long, doesn't it? To repatch just takes too long. This is note to self: do not repatch. Output in. There we go. Output out to in. Outputs. Okay, where is my gain gone? I know what I'm gonna do. I'm going to do an emergency because I've got 1 minute before our guest comes. My sound source is going to come from the Mini Brute instead of the angle grinder. I've messed around with things too much now, so I'm just going to get a really simple sound up. Right, here we go. So I'm coming directly out of the Mini Brute now. Yeah. So I'll try now some of these outputs. All right, so the back now I'm going to put to sides. Oh, I love it. It's so kind of... I'm going to come out of this one now. This is one of the sides. I'll go to density, so that'll have a big effect, I guess. So, this will probably, again, I make nightmare ambience. Pitch. Let's put that final. This will be the final patch, and then we will leave this to join our lovely guest. Now let's come out of that one. Oh, cameras. Come back to me. Yes. Right, we're coming out of this. Pow, 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 pow. And we're going to go into pitch. Oof. Gnarly. No, volts per octave, of course. That's it. Oh, that's great. Let's get a bit lower. It's like really ill kind of. Oh. Okay, enough of this. Oh, it's putting me off food forever. Okay. Right, enough of that nonsense. Obviously, I need to spend a lot more time with this. But, you know, it is so much fun, though. I mean, most of the time, most of the stuff that I do on this is just horrible. But I love it. And I do think that making, like, just noises and stuff is a really addictive thing. And it does have some merit, I guess. I am ultimately, though, looking to try and eke music out of this because I am, or I like to at least think I am, some kind of songwriter. Now, see what I've done now. This is a link because mentioning songwriter, one of my all-time favorite songwriters is just about to join us. So this is something that I am super excited about. Mr. Craig Fortnum. So I will just make sure that he is there. And then, yes, he is ready to join. And I will unmute him and we will bring him in.
Hello.
Hello, hello. One moment, please. And just do my thing. I've got my remote controls and here. Yes. Here we go. Here we are. Mr. Craig Fortnum, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
Big pleasure. Now, this is something I am, well, we've been planning this for a couple of weeks, I think, but we have chosen to have a little chat today because of your imminent release. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please? So,
well, it's my it's my project, my group thing I do with my mate James Larkham, who's in Stars in Battle Dress, who you know very well from his work with William D. Drake.
I do.
And we do a duo thing called Arch Garrison, and our third record is coming out on Friday.
Amazing.
Which I recorded when lockdown happened. I thought, well, I'm just going to crack on and do some work. So that's what I did. It's not about lockdown or anything. It's just I had this time, so I made a record. You know, as I'm sure lots of people have done. You know.
Well, I mean, so just to give a little bit of context, Arch Garrison is very straight, simple instrumentation in terms of mostly just guitar and some filicorder.
Yeah. It's basically my nylon string.
Yeah.
And my filicorder organ. There's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And some like Gen monosynth or my Korg monosynth. So it's pretty, yeah. But this album's because James plays a lot of folk music, so there's a melodeon and some squeeze things. I don't really know what they are. that he's contributed. You know, it's everything's, you know, there's things have actually got wood in them, in how, you know, in the fabric, you know.
Right.
So yeah, we've got wood.
Yes, you heard that. They Arch Garrison have wood, and
Yeah.
so I first became aware of yourself in the North Sea Radio Orchestra. In fact, when you'd released your debut album, 2007 or 2000.
Late 2006, yeah.
2006. So 2007
yeah,
then,
yeah.
I think. When did you play in Green Man?
Yeah, 2007.
2007. Yeah. So I was
one of the rainier years.
It was. Yeah. Oh yeah, and it was really like just outside of the tent you were playing in. It was like just an absolute. Yeah, they've changed things a lot.
Yeah, we played 2 years in a row, and it rained constantly both years. Yeah.
But that was my.
Yeah. So is that where you came across us then? Was it?
Yes. Well,
right.
Actually, I did have the album. And I had a promo copy of the album that a friend of mine called Martin Carr gave me, and so I was kind of up, you know. I loved it. I really loved it. So seeing it live was just like a super thrill. And I did mention at the top of the show, it still is my most. I think it's still that first album. It's still my most listened to thing on my entire iTunes history. And so that's North Sea Radio Orchestra. How many members typically would be in the North Sea?
Well, at that point there was like 20 of us, because we had like a sort of 8 or 9 piece sort of choir, which was just sort of mates, you know, and who I would whip into shape to get them to sing properly and all say their S's and their T's at the same time and stuff like that. So there was about, in the band, there was about 10 piece in the band, and about another 8 or 9 or 10 singers, you know. And at that point, we didn't bring the singers to Green Man, of course. Yeah, so it was a big thing, you know.
Viewers of this show will remember Kavas Tarabi, who was a guest.
Yes, he was in the choir.
He was in the choir, yeah. So things do kind of connect.
Yeah, and Mel from Knife World and Siddies was in it as well, and various other people. Bill Drake was in the choir as well.
Of course. Now.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So William D. Drake, I've worked with on 2 albums, and also a project in Paris, and is a dear friend. And he was. I got his Briny Hooves album and the North Sea Radio Orchestra. I got that as well, and from the same guy. So I've got him to thank, really, Martin Carr, for that introduction, because I fell in love with Bill's music as well, because I'm big Cardiacs.
Not a million miles away, is it, really?
Well, thank you, because this is exactly what I was going to, this is what I was going to talk about, really, because Cardiacs have been a big part of your life, haven't they? And
yes, yeah.
You know, many of us know that we've sadly lost the great leader of Cardiacs, Tim Smith, just only a few weeks ago, which is a terrible tragedy. An absolute genius, I'm sure, Craig, you'd agree.
Yes, yeah.
But can I just ask you a little bit about Cardiacs and how you first discovered them?
Well, I was fortunate enough. I grew up in the countryside near Didcot in Oxfordshire, and then when I was 9, my family moved to Kingston upon Thames, which is where Cardiacs are from. So by the time I was a teenager, playing in sort of space, sort of sub Hawkwind sort of space rock bands, you know, and all that. So this is what I was totally into. I'd see their posters around town and stuff, and I ended up with mutual friends, because it's a small town, really. So we hired their PA. They had a PA called Rabbit PA. And we hired that for one of our gigs in this pub. And that's when I first met Tim. And I think our guitarist played me the Seaside cassette. So this is early 84. This is this is early.
Yeah.
And so I went to see them in early 84. As soon as I heard that cassette, you know, that was one of those epiphanies for me. You know, there's one of those moments where I completely understood it and completely didn't understand it at exactly the same time. And that dichotomy seemed to completely make sense. You know, it was a really strange moment, you know, but I thought, yes, I can do this. This is what I can do. I can do this. I didn't know what the hell he was doing, but I sort of understood it as well. It's very strange, you know. And so we used to go and see them all the time because I was from the same town, basically. You know, became friends and used to go around their house and pester them and stuff. You know, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it also chimed with a lot of stuff I was into anyway, musically, because I learned classical guitar as a kid. And the stuff I loved to do the most was the sort of John Dowland and the Renaissance guitar pieces. And a lot of the stuff I heard in Cardiacs harmonically reminded me of the stuff that I loved most about that stuff, you know.
Right. Now, this is what I was...
Now we're getting to it.
This is it. This is interesting. Cardiacs are, to maybe the kind of the uninitiated, they can sound like a crazy punk band that's kind of just like careering all over the shop and is... and
they can be quite shouty.
Yeah. Now, when you listen to Arch Garrison and North Sea Radio Orchestra, it largely is pastorally focused music. Would you say that's fair?
Well, I guess it became a bugbear of mine in the end, the word pastoral, even though I suppose it is.
I'm sorry.
Because it seemed to be no, it's fine. It just seemed to be. It became a bit of a. It just annoyed me a bit because it, you know, I always thought it had. Not necessarily a darkness, but it had something more than that. I always thought. But,
right.
But yeah,
definitely.
no. But it's all about the chords. I mean, the harmony that I still use is massively influenced by Cardiacs and Tim's harmony, and I've spent most of my life trying to make it my own, as opposed to sounding like making it too obvious an influence of Tim's. You know what I mean? So I spent a lot of time trying to make it my own, really. But fundamentally, the harmony is all the same. It's basically unexpected major chords, you know, in a nutshell.
That's what it is.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because that's what I think when I heard.
Shall I demonstrate?
Oh gosh, yes. But yeah.
Here's what I play. No, because normally, you know, the normal rules of music, right? So you know, you got to, if you're in a G, then you go to a D, you might go to an A minor. No, that's in the rules of music. Whereas A major, it's not a big deal, but it's a tiny little surprise. It makes your ear prick up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
They're all unrelated major chords in effect, and that's what Tim did in spades. But his genius was to be able to tie them all together and make them sound natural by having fantastic melodies on the top, you know. And that, do you know what I mean? And that's what that Dowlandy, that Renaissance stuff does that as well. That's what I liked about that when I was a kid, you see. And when I think I heard Cardiacs, and Bill does it as well, you see. So
interesting. And I think with my own songwriting, I do it as well. I'm quite obsessed with the major. I do it, and I always have from like when I first started writing songs. It always that unexpected. And you saying that, then it's just like going, that's what it was. Because when I first heard Cardiacs, I was like, that's what I was trying to do. But in a way, it was what I was trying to do, and a whole lot more. But maybe.
Yeah, but you're constantly surprised, and you're constantly like, what's that? What's going on? What's that? Because he's always setting things up, and then, you know, confounding the expectations of going to a normal chord, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no funny chords. They're all just straight major chords most of the time. You know, they're not, but it's the combinations of them, I think.
That's
he's invented his own harmonic language, in effect. You know.
Now, I think, though, in terms of developing your own voice, though, I mean, I think that to a lot of people, if they were to hear, you know, as I say, both either Arch Garrison or North Sea Radio Orchestra, I don't think the Cardiacs connection would be apparent at all. I think it's only by digging in.
Well, I worked pretty hard to try and make it, to get that influence, you know, comfortable, so it wasn't really obvious, you know. Otherwise it just sounds like reheated, not as good tin music, you know.
Right.
So I worked, you know, it kind of messed me up for about 10 years. I just wrote terrible music in my 20s because I couldn't, it was such a big influence for me. I couldn't assimilate it successfully. It took a long time. It was basically working with Bill and working with that band, Lake of Puppies. Did you ever hear any of that stuff? When I heard that, I thought, that's how to do it. Just make it beautiful.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of beautiful, Do you think you could play us a beautiful song?
It's almost like we talked about it earlier, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll play a little tune that's on the new album.
On the new album, fantastic. What's this called?
It's called, if I remember rightly, it's called "How Do the Green Things Grow?"
Great.
Which is a pretty pastoral title, isn't it? Really, so it's my own fault.
It's your own fault.
Yeah, and you'll hear there's a sort of, it's kind of got that Renaissance sort of classical guitar thing, because that's what I studied, and I like to play nylon string guitars, and it's all quite obvious, really. Anyway, I'll play it for you.
Please.
I'll see a trace of you crossing the field. I'll find and never know if you never dig a hole how we got grow. I like to take you home one of these days. I'll find and never know if you never dig a hole how we breathe things right.
Yeah, fantastic. Oh, I love it. I love it.
I mean, it's silly, isn't it? I'm going on about pastoral. It's all about, fields and and stuff, like most of my songs. So,
yeah, The Oldest Road is one of my favourites from your second album.
Yeah.
And that's like, which road was that about? It's like the oldest road.
Literally,
yeah.
It's about the Ridgeway.
Does that go through Salisbury?
It goes, well, the Wessex Ridgeway does. It goes, it drops off the downs at Avebury, goes up from Avebury all the way past the White Horse, the Uffington White Horse.
The Uffington White Horse.
And then it carries on up north of London and everything.
Oh, right, wow. Oh.
Yeah, and they think it's the oldest track road in the country, where after the last ice age, man followed it, over
Wow. Very, very deserving of a song, and I think a beautiful song it is as well. Very, 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 very worth checking out. So your songs typically, excuse my creaky chair, excuse me. Your songs are, you write them on the guitar and with your vocals too, but then you bring them to James, and James adds his parts to it after you've written them, or does it change how his involvement is?
Sometimes I do them all. Sometimes James does them. It depends, it depends on just the practicalities.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what it's like. If you're in the middle of writing a tune, you get all excited, you just sort of do it yourself if you're there.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of that going on. And then sometimes I'll send stuff to James and I'll say, can you add things? And so it varies.
James is one of the most astonishing musicians I've ever met. He's a very precise man, I think. And his contributions are beautiful. They add another kind of barockish kind of quality, really, because he will play very. How would you describe that?
Spidery.
yeah, spidery.
Keyboard lines. And stuff,
Well, everybody must check your music out because it is absolutely jam-packed full of goodness. Now, I also noticed in the song you were playing there, possibly a bit of a Beefheart or a Zappa influence. Would you say that is something that is in your musical?
Possibly more. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people, I guess, had a major Zappa obsession. When I first got into Zappa. In fact, it was Tim from Cardiacs who first played me Zappa. actually. First maybe the Drowning Witch record, and it's like, wow. So I was already into kind of, for want of a better word, complicated music, and so when I heard that, I did really love it. And Beefheart definitely, but Beefheart's not really an influence because I don't really, obviously there's a massive blues thing with him, and I don't really have that, but I do, having said that, stuff like Dock at a Radar Station is an amazing record.
Yeah.
That stuff, if the longer I live, I imagine that will become more of an influence, that kind of stuff.
Nice, yeah.
Because it seems so free, inspired.
I think it is that is a great album. I'm Clear Spot. I think I would, if I had to pick one of Beefheart's albums, Clear Spot, I think would be my choice.
Yeah, also. Yeah.
But no, I was pointing out the Beefheart thing, just more to do with having lines of lyric and not being too concerned about it being in common metering, time signatures, and just it being.
Oh, that's yes. Yeah.
But so in terms of like British influences, I mean, are things like Vaughan Williams? Does that figure in your music at all?
I mean, when I was a kid, it was strictly classical music when I was a kid, and my dad liked a lot of Vaughan Williams and Elgar and Britten and stuff like that. So there was a lot of that. But that just means, I guess, that's just a certain harmonic sense of, a certain choice of chords, a bit like what we were talking about earlier. Really, Vaughan Williams does that in spades. Unexpected major chords, does it all the time. Because there's a lot of folk music, and that's what they do in folk music, But I tell you what, the massive influence on me was the first Griffin album. Do you know the first Griffin album?
Oh yeah, Griffin. Yeah,
because that was the only album that we had at home that wasn't classical. So I listened to it obsessively when I was a kid, and it's weird when you talk about the first NSOR album, because I realised that all these sort of bass things that I do on the filicorn, these sort of everything, these sort of farty. That kind of sound, I realised I was basically trying to do a crumb horn.
Yes.
Several years later, I thought, oh god, yeah, I'm just trying to copy. I'm sort of trying to ape like the sound of a crumb horn from that Griffin album.
Griffin, yeah, because that's a peculiar band, Griffin, because that first album is very, very infused with an early music vibe.
It's nearly a straight early music album.
Yeah,
not quite, sort of.
But they started to get a little bit funky, didn't they, with subsequent albums?
Yeah.
And so yeah,
and then they went electric, don't they? Like a lot of bands do.
Yeah.
End, just before they break up, get the full, electric vibe.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I loved. They were massive.
But they are playing again, aren't they, Griffin? The lineup they've reformed.
Yeah. I saw them a few years ago, and they were fantastic.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That is cool. So I mean, like North Sea Radio Orchestra, then. I mean, to the uninitiated, if you've heard the first North Sea Radio Orchestra album, you may be surprised about some of the developments of some of the later albums. Aya Moon, for instance, has got some interesting kind of going into kind of krautrock territory. I mean,
that's all because I started producing it myself, basically. I sort of at the end of the second album, I did a sort of keyboard sort of end of one of the songs, and I thought I really enjoyed doing that. And then that gave me the confidence to do the first Arch Garrison album, which I produced myself. And there's a lot of mistakes on there production wise and all that stuff. But when I started working on Aya Moon, because I basically used like using the studio as a writing tool. Do you know what I mean? In a way that I didn't before. I used to be almost strictly pencil and paper. You know what I mean? Whereas as soon as I got into really being able to just have fun in the studio and edit and dick around, and I do a lot of, I'll improvise a lot of stuff in, like on the filicorn or something, then comp it and get what I want, then I transcribe it for a clarinet and it would dub, so the writing it's kind of more fun and freer, and I think that was a lot to do with that different change, And I do use a bit of pencil and paper when I need to, but I'd much rather, I'm not that genius character like Tim. Tim would sit at a desk and write stuff with just a pencil and paper. Didn't need a guitar or a piano or anything like that. Honestly,
really,
like Benjamin Britten or somebody.
Wow.
Whereas I need to hear it. I need to hear it and enjoy it and get into it, and like a mere mortal, really. Yeah. So that was that's my the way I work changed basically. that's why the music changed so much. I think became less chambery, you know, a bit more, yeah, as you said. And I did quite massively get into some krautrock stuff as well. And I thought I wanted to do, you know, everybody does the motoric thing once, you know, I tried it as well, you know.
But it's really nice because it still is full of the North Sea Radio Orchestra hallmarks, though. So it's yeah, you know, it's not like it loses its.
No.
It's still full of the flavour as well.
Still got bassoons and clarinets in it.
Yeah. So would you write the parts for the other players, or would you encourage some of the players to contribute parts for North Sea Radio Orchestra? How written is that?
No, totally written.
Totally written.
Totally written. Yeah. No, I mean, occasionally there'd be some sections of a song where I say, right, improvise in D minor with a flat 7 or something, you know, or whatever mode. It tends to be quite modal, you know. So so I'd say improvise there, and then when I give you the nod back to the page, you know. So that, no, they didn't. I wrote everything, you know. Absolutely. Yeah.
No, interesting. Well, with the exception of Minimus in Church.
Yeah.
That was a Bill Drake composition, I believe. So beautiful, beautiful tune. But that sounded great in the orchestra as well. So I think one of the reasons why I've been really drawn to the music is that there is a kind of honesty to the sound of things. It sounds well, Sharon's vocals in North Sea, for instance, have a beautiful open quality to it. It feels kind of very approachable, very kind of warming and inviting. And all of the instruments sound very kind of clear and beautiful and sort of, I mean, I guess that's what I mentioned, maybe pastoral, but I mean, there are very dark moments in the music.
I don't know about very, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe not very, yeah, but lots of light and shade. So I was always interested in how much you've delved into. Well, you say you've got the Korg there, haven't you? And
Yeah.
have you tried doing a Wendy Carlos kind of thing at all ever, and try to make a full composition like North Sea Radio Orchestra, but have all of it voiced via analog synths?
Oh, well, I mean, that's just, you know, I've always wanted to do that, and it's just a question of time and this, that, and the other. And I'd love to do an electronic album. I've always wanted to do that. I suppose that's what you'd call it, I guess, an electronic album. I would very much like to do that. Yeah, and it's just another thing that I want to do, as well as, you know, I want to work with Bill more, and, you know, there's all these projects I want to do, and that's one of them for sure. I mean, I probably will do that at some point. And I don't really tend to use MIDI very much, so I'd like to play everything if I can, or even just set things up with seeps and stuff. But, you know, it wouldn't be programmed. I don't think it wouldn't be that.
No, okay, but played in, but all of the voices.
Of course, yeah. No, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Something I've mentioned before on my show, and something that I'm quite interested in, is if you read the manuals for the original Mini Moog and ARP Odyssey, for instance, they're relating a lot of the synthesizer process to how it relates to real world classical instruments, and there's like little bits about how to make a clarinet sound and how to make
that's interesting. Do you think that's because it was all in the 60s when they were doing that, and do you think that's what it was?
Yeah,
they wouldn't do that now, would they?
No, they don't at all. So I mean, so those I recommend reading those manuals as kind of quite interesting, because it's like talking about how waveforms relate to the particular instruments, and how even and odd harmonics relate to different instruments. And like a composer, an orchestral composer who knows what all of the instruments are meant to do, well, you know, that
how they correspond, importantly.
Yes. Yeah. Now that's something that obviously takes lots of study and lots of work. But essentially
experience as well, you know, and mistakes, you know.
Good old mistakes.
But that's what I say about now I want to, I want to work with the sound. Yeah, but I want to work with the sound. The people who can just do it all in their head. That's beyond. It really is.
Yeah.
I like to have the sound to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, that's what's great. I'll never moan about the digital revolution, because I can now think, I really want that bit to go on longer. I really want to get that bit from earlier in the song. And, how easy is it to do that now?
Yeah.
But if that means that people don't buy as many records, so be it.
Well, yeah,
really.
yeah. I mean, you've got to make music to the fullest of your vision and belief, and not compromise it for some perception of what is popular or what would be unpopular. I mean, that's the thing that's always held me back, really, is adhering to that. Is that, that I've made a lot of them.
Carver said a very funny quote when he first heard Cardiac. He's like, I now know I will never have a mortgage. It's perfect, really.
Yeah.
I'll never have to worry about having a mortgage. No, I've heard that. Yeah. It's never going to happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Because, I mean, yes. I have been thinking about things about, like, my band Rocket Gold Star. We were kind of 20 years ago, we were having the moment in the kind of limelight, and sort of had opportunities, and the more those opportunities were opening to us, the more the music we were making was more obtuse, complex, knotty, and snotty, actually.
Well, good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but then
but why was that though? Was that a deliberate thing? Or
well, I think it was just I think they had this idea, because of a lot of the music that I think we've got a lot of shared influences, but that it felt that integrity was the absolute most important thing. And that sort of any form of compromise for popularity's sakes was somehow demeaning to the entire art of what we were trying to do. Now, I'm not sure that this is correct now. I think back and go, God, if we'd have just maybe made one album of happy songs. If you
start going down that road, then when do you end? It's a bit of the genie out of the bottle thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And as Bob Drake says, he says it's a body of work. It's a long game.
Yeah.
It's a long game.
But I mean,
I didn't quite realise how long.
But everything's different now, and we're emerging, hopefully soon, post-pandemic. Who knows when? But I mean, the whole world is going to be different, and things that we maybe take as for granted are certainly not anymore. Now, I'm wondering what on earth is going to happen with live music, like many of us. Now, you're somebody who's performed live many times in various different forms. How are you coping with not gigging? I mean, is that something that's having?
It's starting to get me down.
Yeah,
really starting to get me down.
Me too.
Because I mean, when you're, especially because I'm a bit like somebody who writes books. I'm basically on my own, doing my thing. I write it. I do most of the recording myself. I go to people's houses and record the violin and all, and whatever I'm doing, but I'm sort of on my own. And the gigs are the reward. They're the fun bit, aren't they? They're the bit where you meet people as well, and people look you in the eye and say that was great, and that for me, that's my reward.
Yes.
Really, because it's nice that people buy my CDs, and I might get some nice messages, but you don't feel it as much as if somebody looks, you know what I mean? If you meet people or you do a gig, and you know what I mean? It's just, that's the fun bit.
Yeah.
I do miss it.
But but speaking of live music, do you think it's time for another song?
Shall I do another song?
Oh, yes, please.
I don't know which one I'm going to do now. Have you got, would you like a request or anything?
Could you do the oldest? Is the oldest road? Can you still remember how to play that one?
I could. Yeah, I'm playing. Actually, I'm doing a gig on Saturday.
Sorry,
on the sort of visual arts Froome FM visual arts thing, which is great. They have a studio in Froome.
Okay.
And it's going to be on Facebook 8:00 on Saturday, and me and James are doing it, and they've got a nice.
Oh, frozen.
sounds good,
Mm-hmm.
and so I remember rehearsal. First time I played music with anybody in.
Great. And
So I do remember it because I've been practicing it.
I'm sorry, I didn't realise that's what I said
See
that.
so I do that. Yeah, I'll start. If it goes on too long, you can just go back to your modular synth. Okay.
Yeah.
Chalk rises overhead, up above alluvial. Is it true what you said? Chalk springs the fluvial flows into town, scatters people all around. Do they feel it? Do they know? Chalk under the bone, and I have walked the oldest road 80,000 years ago, never more. There a barrow, here a mound, furnish them with sight and sound. Do we hear it? Do we know? Chalk under the bone, back and forth in a time. Over chalk a pine line disappears into the hands. Happy day. And I was born with flint in hand. I write my name upon the land, never takes away all the time I want, even the way it only takes an hour, even in an hour, all the time I want, even in an hour, I avoid the oldest one, 80,000 years ago. Where the earth explodes, atomize the oldest road, never
Yes. Honestly, that is one of my favourite songs of all time. So
that's got one of those C to A major, not C to A minor. C to A major.
There we are.
It's all about.
Interesting. God, I love that song. And everybody, you've got to check that song out, as you have to check out the new album on Friday.
It's got loads of keyboards and all stuff going on in it. It's not just that,
Because what I've heard of the new one, there's a lot. There's maybe more stuff going on this new one than on previous Arch Garrison records. Is it? Maybe.
Yeah,
just
maybe. I don't know.
But because I'm quite curious about that idea of music that's got a lot of space in it, yet is full of notes.
Yeah.
I've always found that with
Yeah, I think that's a textural thing, isn't it? I don't like to have thick, heavy textures. I like to hear individual lines and all that. And like chamber music, I love chamber music. You know, I like classical music, orchestral music, not so much, but chamber music I really like. And I think it's because it's the clarity, as you're saying, it's the clarity of lines, a counterpoint. Like earlier, you were showing me your bark for the bass. You know that sort of stuff. I find much more interesting, and maybe I try and do that myself subconsciously. You know, I'd like to hear all those individual lines. You can have a lot going on, but also things can be quite still at the same time. You know.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've detected little bits of Gentle Giant as well. Is that something that you've ever ventured into?
Yeah. I mean, not massively. I mean, I did have a couple of Gentle Giant records, and I did like them a lot, more so than something like Yes. Yes, were always a bit shiny for me, whereas Gentle Giant were more. Do you know what I mean?
I kind of see.
I don't know. I'm getting into dangerous territory here now. You know.
Well, I think Yes kind of go more symphonic, and sort of Gentle Giant are more like a chamber orchestra in a way. I think, you know, certainly in terms of all the contrapuntal kind of things going on, and the
definitely, yeah.
I learned a lot of musical phrases and musical theory things from Gentle Giant, like hocketing. The term hocketing was something
that's an early music technique.
It's an early music technique, and that is
that's like a medieval thing, like a sacred music thing,
right?
Choral thing.
So I mean, I've only got a very basic understanding of it, but hocketing is that the melody line is told by different instruments. One part of the melody will be played by one instrument, will be continued by another instrument, and then continued by another.
It can bounce around almost as well. It's like a ping pong delay almost. Bounce from one voice to another, you know.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. So you're right. The melody's intact, but it bounces around from different voices.
So the texture is changing across. God. So you know, so like getting some of this kind of composition into sort of synthland, I think would definitely be some. Well, I mean, there are synths on your stuff, but I've been. You know, really smitten, as many people have, by Mort Garson's music recently, because that's sort of. Do you know? Have you come across Mort Garson at all?
No, I'm sorry, no.
I'll
check it out.
Mort Garson, Canadian sort of synthesist, and I think that a lot of his music has been out of print for years, but the Mother Earth Plantasia is something that came out maybe a couple of years ago now, but that was I think mid-1976 I think it was recorded, and it's music for your house plants, and each song has got a different house plant, is focused on a different house plant, and you're meant to play it to your house plants to make them grow. It's just lovely.
Right. I bet Prince Charles is probably a big fan then, isn't he? You know, talk to the plants.
Yeah. But now I'm a little bit obsessed with it musically, because it's very simple. It's kind of, there's not layers and layers of stuff going on, but it's very, very melodic. So I think you might quite like it. But but there's these beautiful
melodies and chords, you know.
Melodies and chords. Yes.
Melodies and chords are ultimately what I love the most.
Yeah.
In music,
I think me
harmony
too.
And how it works with melody. You know. That's the thing that makes you blub, you know, for me.
So it's like almost, I was thinking about this earlier actually, and chords are almost like these kind of islands, and then the melody is the path between the islands, and if you've got fairly standard chords or fairly standard islands, you've got to kind of make the pathway kind of less predictable, more interesting.
Yes. Well, that goes back to what I was saying about Tim and his unrelated chords. He could make that they don't in a way they don't really make any sense, but as soon as they've got that melody on top of them, they make total sense. You know,
right?
And that's the same thing, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And the narrative as well, I suppose. You know, that as a narrative, it's kind of making it all make sense. But so how are we doing for time? This is going very, very well. I did notice something in the chat room. There's been some comment about my double denim appearance tonight.
Yeah.
Now I will because it's warm, I've left the jacket downstairs. I've double denim. I've been triple denim. I've gone out and I've gone the full triple denim, and and wearing it, it's given me the Travolta thing. I'm kind of I'm swinging. I'm a grooving.
You must have had several layers of denim when you were a kid.
Yeah, I love denim, and
I definitely did that when I was a kid. It was all the rage in the 70s, wasn't it?
Can't find denim underpants though anywhere. I went looking everywhere, but they just.
I've got my NSRO Robert Wyatt t-shirt.
Thank you. Now that is a fantastic link. That's switching from underpants into something far more savoury. The collaboration. Well, I say collaboration. No, you performed Robert Wyatt's genius album Rock Bottom in its entirety in France fairly recently with.
Yeah, well, we've done it a few times. We did it on the radio in France. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Now, you were also collaborating with a certain John Greaves from Henry Cow and Art Bears.
Noted Welshman.
From my hometown, Wrexham. And I'd love to talk to him sometime because he went to the same secondary school as my dad. I think he's a year younger than him. So it's sort of like...
he played in his dad's big band, didn't he? That's how John learned his craft. His dad had a big band.
Right.
So he was there as like a 12-year-old, going around the changes, yeah.
That's interesting. So Henry Cow. Now let's. I think this is a perfect opportunity to talk a bit of Henry Cow, and then this will lead us on to the Rock Bottom collaboration. Henry Cow. Some of you may know them, some of you may not. Now, not the easiest listening of bands, are they?
No, but they're not the most difficult either. I guess it just depends on where you're coming from.
I think the thing with Henry Cow, it feels like I often talk about this, about musical junctions. Every musical junction, every musical decision that you have to make, you can kind of take easy street or you can take kind of obtuse alley. And Henry Cow, just they go out of their way to thwart your kind of almost your enjoyment in a way. Melodies just snake away, and just everything seems to kind of go in the most odd direction. You need to listen to it. For me, I've needed to listen to it quite a lot to be able to actually hear it as music. But when you start to hear it, you realise it's very, very composed and very deliberate. And of course,
I find it interesting that they're all basically jazzers as well, aren't they? They come from that. They were all sort of jazz musicians, weren't they? Really, I think, like Wyatt was. That whole, they get lumped in with the Canterbury thing, which I don't think is really apt, but and I think it's because they all came out of jazz, didn't they?
Yeah, although
Charlie Mingus.
I mean, I think the Canterbury thing is kind of fair in as much as something happened in Canterbury to a bunch of people, and that was and that is a lot to do with a certain Australian gangly beat poet called David Allen arriving with a massive sack of LSD and then subsequently giving it to all the 16-year-olds in 1961 Britain. I mean, this planted a psychedelic bomb in the home counties. This was something, I think it's like the kind of... I think it's in many ways the untold story of the counterculture, really, in many ways. Like, Canterbury is a very well-to-do town, isn't it? It's a beautiful, old, ancient British city.
Kent's funny, though, isn't it, as well? Kent's got a dark... something going on in Kent, I find. not in a bad way, don't let offend any Kentians. No, but Kent's got very something going on. It's not just oast houses and
What is Kent has seen a lot of action over the years, though, hasn't it? I mean, in terms of it's in many ways the first bit of Britain that people will encounter. But anyway, yes, so we're talking about the amazing Henry Cow and John Greaves. And of course, after Henry Cow pretty much last the 70s, don't they? But after John left and was briefly in National Health, which is the Canterbury supergroup. And after that...
And then he did Q Roan, didn't he? Q Roan.
Now that's a bit I don't know about. Is that before?
Right.
So Art Beers was John, wasn't it? Or was that?
No,
No, that isn't. That is
that's Cutler.
Cutler, right? The drummer, and was it the and was Lindsay? Coming undone now. Who was the bassoon player?
Lindsay Cooper.
Lindsay Cooper. Yes, one of the only bassoonists in rock up until actually.
Chloe Harrington.
Chloe. Yes, Chloe. Really? That's brilliant. And I saw Chloe first play with Chrome Hoof,
Yes.
which was an amazing band. I don't know if are they still active, Chrome Hoof?
I think, well, they were supposed to be doing a gig, weren't they? And it got COVIDed off.
They were.
They were doing a big show, Raw Power, this year, but it got,
Now,
rescheduled. So
Chrome Hoof. Now this ties up some nice things together as well in a way. Chrome Hoof are like this bizarre combination of some of the most disparate music forms, like very heavy metal, death metal, even disco, funk,
sort of party metal, sort of.
yeah, and do this but do it all in a style of some weird and deep, dark ritual where they're wearing cloaks, and it blows my mind. It's absolutely brilliant. And but there's a little bit of crossover then with the musicians in Chrome Hoof with the Cardiacs kind of family,
Carvus and Knife World,
Carvus.
And all that lot.
And so I really urge people to kind of not only investigate Craig's
There's a whole
music,
scene.
there's a whole scene. Of some of the most challenging, fun, amazing, mind-blowing music that I've ever heard. And I guess it's a Londonish thing, I suppose. Those bands mostly, I don't know really.
I guess.
Maybe. Yeah. Right, how are we doing time? Okay, we'll aim to sort of go. We'll have another 5-10 minutes, and then
all right.
So Friday release, Arch Garrison. Yes, that's where we're at. So we're talking about Henry Cow, but Robert Wyatt. Yes. So Robert Wyatt, who was one of the founder members of Soft Machine. I'm sure most people will know a bit about Robert Wyatt, but one of the things that's quite remarkable about Robert Wyatt, I think, apart from him being, he was 16 years old when someone came knocking on his door, and it was this David Allen, the Australian beat poet who I mentioned earlier. He had been living in Paris in Allen Ginsberg's flat and was really very much infused with the whole beatnik movement. Decided
he got kicked out of France, didn't he?
wanted to form a band, was hitchhiking, got as far as I think he probably got to Dover, hitchhiked, got as far as Canterbury, and then ended up looking for lodgings, and happened. I love this moment in time.
Yeah, I know, it's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
He happened to look for lodgings and found lodgings at Robert Wyatt's house. So the 16-year-old Robert Wyatt, who was a jazz fan, really big jazz fan. There was a whole gang of them, and they really turned their noses up at pop music. And when the Beatles came out, they were like, no, it's all about jazz. And then eventually started listening to a bit of rock music, but they were like really, really into jazz. But when David Allen arrived, David told me this. It was something in the region of 20,000 acid tabs, which was still legal. It wasn't made illegal till 1966 in Britain. Right. So he turned up. Well, no one even knew what it was. It was, there wasn't a counterculture in Britain. There wasn't a kind of underground culture. That stuff just didn't exist. David turns up with his sack of acid and basically creates counterculture in Britain, I think. And because Soft Machine, which there was the Wildflowers, I think, was the first band that kind of formed in out of those different musicians, and different bands kind of broke out from that, including Soft Machine, which David Allen was the frontman of Soft Machine until David was then kicked out of Britain, wasn't he, in '66, I think.
Yeah, Yeah.
And then he went
Or I
back.
think they went and did some shows in
That's right.
France, and he wasn't allowed
And he wasn't
back in.
allowed
They
back
must have
in.
known he had a bag of acid on him or something. Yeah.
Bag of acid.
That's that then. So he started Gong, didn't he? He started Gong.
Yeah, he started Gong in France. So yeah, I love all of these stories. I think it's really
I know,
interesting.
it's great.
But Robert,
Yeah.
but then after, so Soft Machine carried on without David, and they became a three-piece: Kevin Ayers and Mike Ratledge, and were the first kind of psychedelic band in Britain. You know, the Pink Floyd, or the Pink Floyd as they were called around then, was still sort of kind of playing around with blues. They hadn't really fully embraced the psychedelic thing. Speaking of psychedelic, just one little insert here. I remember talking to Tim Smith. In fact, I think it was the first time I ever talked to him, and he described Cardiac's music as psychedelic pop.
Yeah.
That was his preferred definition of Cardiac's music. But anyway, the psychedelic, this psychedelic band, Soft Machine, they were, Jimi Hendrix was introduced to them when he came over in 1966. And I'm sure there was probably some acid knocking about then. They gave it to Hendrix. Hendrix got psychedelicized by Soft Machine, and he would jam with them. And so really that Canterbury LSD thing then has now influenced Hendrix, and that, and look what happens, and everything else after that. Yeah, it's an interesting little tale there.
It's amazing. It is good stuff, isn't it? It's amazing how this stuff starts.
Right. Sorry, I'm trying to speed through this story to bring it back into relevance.
Yeah,
so,
go on.
Robert Wyatt then, after, without David Allen, the band was those first two Soft Machine albums are great psychedelic British underground albums of the 60s. Soft Machine then, after Wyatt left, they became more and more jazz form, really, more like jazz rock.
Yeah,
really.
he wanted to do more songs, didn't he?
Yes, and he was, by his own admission, he was a bit of a he was a bit of a bad boy, wasn't he? He was like kind of he was very in the kind of rock and roll way of doing things, and he was having it off with someone's girlfriend at some party. He was basically, I think, sort of hobnobbing with someone else's girlfriend, and then they tried. Do you know this story? Is this? Am I right in thinking this?
Well, John Greaves was there. John told me all about it.
Oh, he was there. He was there.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really.
No, he jumped out the window to avoid getting caught, didn't he?
He jumped out the window, but sadly, it was
broke his back.
He broke his back and became paralysed. And has spent the rest of his life in a wheelchair, waist down paralysed, I think, because his hands are. He can. Yeah.
But I think he said that's what he wanted to write songs, and it's almost like he had to do something extreme to be able to be a songwriter as opposed to a drummer.
Right.
It's like he'd almost sabotage that. That's how he was going to do it. With hindsight, obviously.
Yeah. And has kind of claimed it's like the best thing that ever happened to him. That it kind of put him on it for such an awful.
Put him on his path.
It put him on his path, which is quite amazing. But his first solo album then, because he had a band in between Soft Machine called Matching Mole, which was a sort of a French pun, machine mole, I think, of Soft Machine in French. And some great stuff there on Matching Mole stuff. But really, that first solo album, Rock Bottom, 1974?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the title is says quite a lot, really, doesn't it? He's just.
It's in a lot of people's top 5 records. A lot of people.
Yeah. Oh, it's a magic album.
It really is a massive record. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, you say a massive record in a kind of in a very special way, but perhaps it's still a record that is still awaiting discovery by maybe the wider world. And herein is the thing that's I find fascinating. You decided to perform that album in full which is quite interesting. A band
Yes.
choosing another band's or artist's work to do. Why did you do that?
Well, because we were asked to by this guy
Ah,
Richard Robert, a Frenchman who was, I think, the booker at a festival in Lyon called Nuit de Fourvière Festival, which is this great festival on a hill in Lyon where there's these two Roman amphitheatres, a massive one and a smaller one. They have a big festival every year. Burt Bacharach, Pixies, Elton John, all these huge acts. But they also put on some more unusual and perhaps less, overtly popular stuff on the smaller amphitheatre. And this was in 2014, and Richard had reviewed some NSRO albums for his sort of online fanzine or something. And he said, it's 40 years since Rock Bottom. This is what it was. I want to do something. And I was listening to it the other day and I thought it'd be great to hear North Sea Orchestra playing that album. So he basically put together some singers. He put together some French singers and John Greaves from Henry Cow, who was living in Paris. And I think it was very canny because John is a real connection with Robert because they're old mates. So that's a real proper connection with Robert Wyatt, which I think was important, And so he asked me to do all the arrangements and bring the band over, and that's what we did. So we went and did this thing. I worked about 3 months on arrangements. So I really got into listening to rock, but I knew it, but to listen to it really carefully was great, and so I did these arrangements and stuff, and then we did this gig, and it was great. And then nothing happened for several years. And then a friend of John's, Max Marcini, an Italian guy who has a label based in Piacenza, and they run a festival as well. Said, come over and play this festival. We'll record you, and I'll release the record.
wow.
So we did. So we went to Piacenza, and John, his partner in crime, Annie Barbazza, who's an Italian singer, he wanted her to do that. So she sang on it, and her and Bill sing a lot. I got Bill Drake on it because he knows that album really well, and he's a great pianist. And I just thought Bill was my first thing is get Bill on board, So we did it, and we recorded an album. Basically, we recorded the concert, but it didn't quite come out so well technically, Whereas we rehearsed for a week in this really great studio called Elfo Studios, and we were just literally recorded on the last day. We were just recorded live in the studio, and that's what the record is. And yeah, and I was really, really pleased with it. And it was so much fun doing somebody else's music. God, what a relief.
Right.
It's just, and it's a really good album to do because there's so much freedom in it, and that was the challenge, was arranging it, but not getting too tight on the arrangements and keeping it all free, because you can hear Wyatt dicking around in the studio, can't you, really? On that record, you can hear him almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this
improvising, and to try and keep that spirit of it that was the challenge. Really,
right. This is what I was kind of interested about, really. So knowing that it's there is a lot of improvisation in it. So did you kind of play all of the improvised parts, or did you put improvisation into it?
I turned some of them into arrangements. So there's lots of bits where he's like, no, 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 and doing his thing. So I would take some of those bits and then give them to instruments to play.
Oh, nice.
So I was using some of his improvisations and turning them into arrangements. But then I'd leave whole sections where people could improvise, and do you know what I mean? So it's kind of just a balance between keeping this, because it really is, there's a real spirit on that album. I want to try, that was the challenge, to keep that, really, to not squash it.
Yeah. Nice. All right. And I mean, wow. I mean, gosh, what a wonderful, satisfying thing to do as well.
Yeah, and also we had Ched, gong drummer, on it. So there's all these things like John, who's an old mate of Robert Wyatt's, is on it, and then we've got the present gong drummer on it, who and there's so many connections between all these bands. It was really great to be a small, a very small part of this stuff that's still going on. It was really great. And people love that record. They're very precious about that album, and that was also fun as well, to not piss too many people off.
on a much smaller. Sorry. On a much.
I was just going to say, Didier Maleb came to see us in Paris.
Did he? From Gong.
Can't talk about a dream.
Wow. What an amazing! I've always felt Didier is a very underrated musician. I mean, I've listened to some of his solo stuff, and I think he is so brilliant. He's became most, I guess, is most well known for his involvement in Gong, especially around the Flying Teapot trilogy and beyond. Well, on a much smaller scale, I think probably a year and a half, 2 years ago or something, I was involved in a tribute to Gong, and we played the whole of Camembert Electrique.
Really?
And I played the David Allen role in it. So
Right, really.
oh god, it was so much fun. We had a French girl called Sophie who played Gilly Smith's kind of a
Space Whisper.
She did the Space Whisper. Yeah. Some of that's up on YouTube. Loads of fun to do. But I mean, so I love this kind of alternate sort of lineage, really, through music with bands like Henry Cow and Gong and Magma through to Cardiacs, and then linking to Naughty Radio Orchestra, Arch Garrison, and various other bands.
Well, you should talk. Did you talk to Carvis about this stuff? Because who's now, of course, the frontman of Gong.
Yes.
And he says, he's not one for hiding the hyperbole, old Carby, So he's like, we are the next, this is us.
Yeah.
And he said he thinks it's perfect,
Oh, yeah. I think so.
Carries on through other bands and.
Yeah. Well, I certainly, again, I urge everybody to investigate not only your own music, but, the various other musics that we've talked about today. I think I'm going to call time on our show, I think, just so we don't get too long. We've had a lovely audience, loads of comments, lots of denim
mainly
related.
about your denim.
My denim. But
you get Saxon on next week. Get Saxon next month.
Biff Byford, is it Bifford?
Yeah.
But so just to recap then, Friday, Arch Garrison.
Friday.
It's called.
And I'm playing Saturday. We're playing Saturday night on the Facebook, 8:00.
And how will people find that? It's on.
If they go to the Arch Garrison, find Arch Garrison, but I think it's called. I can't remember what it's called. Something Arts. Froome FM. I think it's through Froome FM.
And it's actually going to be in Froome.
Visual Radio Arts.
Visual. Okay.
Yeah, we go to Froome. There's an old fire station. They have a studio there and a live room. It's great. Visual Radio Arts. Yeah.
Okay, so best of luck with the release on Friday. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, amazing.
Hope to see you in the flesh at some point.
Gosh, it's been a while now.
It
has been for us all. But is it audience on Saturday? Is it all 6 people? Oh gosh, is it all just no live audience?
No live audience.
No live audience.
Just 2 people in the control room and me and James. And the internet.
I shall have to join on the internet.
All
okay,
right.
So thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you, Craig, once again. Come back next week for the Gaz Williams show next Wednesday. And thanks. Take care, everybody, and we'll say goodbye.
Yes.
Cheers. Thanks so much. Hey.